So when the story first came out that Jon Jones and Francis Ngannou were interested in fighting each other at heavyweight, and Jon Jones was finally going to make the move after 10 whole years of us wanting him to do so to the heavyweight division to challenge himself like so many other champions have done, I made the prediction that Ngannou was going to KO him inside one round, because if Ngannou lands on your chin, you go to sleep regardless if you're Jon Jones or not. Ngannou hits harder than any other man in the octagon, and any other man in the octagon we've ever seen before. I thought that Ngannou would have KO'd Jones in the first round. I also made a prediction in that video that Jon Jones is not going to go up to heavyweight and ever fight Francis Ngannou. I knew it wasn't going to happen, and now Jon Jones has come out and said, oh, the UFC wasn't willing to pay me enough to fight Francis Ngannou, meaning that Jon Jones turned down the Ngannou fight. You know what that tells me? Jon Jones tried to come out and say that the UFC weren't willing to even make the fight happen. But he also mentioned they weren't willing to pay him enough to make the fight to happen. You've messed yourself up there. You've just caught yourself red-handed, Jon Jones. I don't know why you would leak that much information all at once. You said the UFC is not willing to do the fight. Then they're not willing to do the fight for the money that you're after, which means they are willing to do the fights and they would be happy to do the fights. But they're just not willing to give you that extra bonus money that you feel like you deserve for going up a weight class. Jon Jones, I've never understood the negotiation of pay in the UFC. I really haven't. I knew Jon Jones did not want to fight Francis Ngannou. I have never understood why guys seem to want to negotiate their show money when they are champions in the UFC. That has never made any sense to me whatsoever. If you're fighting Francis Ngannou, Ngannou's a bigger name, which means it's going to get more hype for your card and your pay-per-view card. You get a share of the pay-per-views. That's your bonus for fighting a terrifying Francis Ngannou. You've signed a contract. 500,000 to show regardless of any pay-per-view extras that you get. 500,000 to show. Why do you need to change that 500,000 to show? If Ngannou fights you, you're probably going to earn about 200,000 more pay-per-view buys than you did against Thiago Santos. That's for damn sure. And against Dominic Reyes as well. I'm 100% sure those pay-per-views did not do amazingly well because they weren't big hyped fights. The bonus you get for fighting Ngannou is the pay-per-view revenue that you can bring in by Ngannou being so terrifying, and by this being the first time that Jon Jones might actually be the underdog, which he was. Ngannou opened as the betting favourite. That would sell. That's your share of the money, Jones. That's your risk. You take on these big hyped fights where you're the underdog and everyone expects you to lose. Everyone buys the pay-per-view. That's where you get your money from. I don't understand why the show money was negotiated, but you know what? Jon Jones found his way out of fighting Francis Ngannou. I told you this was going to happen. And then straight afterwards, what did he say? Jan Blachowicz looks like you're next in line. This is the Jon Jones tour of idiocy. Every single year it feels like he does this. He mentions heavyweight. He mentions his own division. He says something else, like he even hinted at retirement yesterday as well. And then it led all the way back round to I'm fighting Jan Blachowicz. And I couldn't just say that I was fighting Jan Blachowicz, because now I'm going to create loads of headlines not about Jan Blachowicz, but just about Jon Jones, so that when I do eventually sign to fight Jan Blachowicz, I'm going to get a little bit more hype just because my name's been more relevant recently. If Jon Jones came out straight away and said, I'm fighting Jan Blachowicz next, no one would care. We knew. Okay, that's probably very likely. You're going to fight Jan Blachowicz. Cool, headline made. One-time headline. Jon Jones wants to fight Jan Blachowicz next. Cool story, Jon Jones. Less people are going to buy that pay-per-view than bought the Dominic Reyes one. Less people are going to buy the Dominic Reyes one that bought the Thiago Santos one. Recently, Jon Jones's pay-per-view numbers have been drastically dropping. Every single card. He fought Gustafsson in a rematch in his big return. Did 700,000 buyers, I believe. Decent card. Not the best because, you know, Bisping versus St. Pierre did more. There's been a lot of cards that have done way more than Jon Jones's cards. And I'm going to get round to this as well. Jon Jones is not a draw right now. I know a lot of people say that Jon Jones is one of the biggest stars in the sport. His pay-per-view numbers say otherwise. If you look at the pay-per-view numbers for Masvidal versus Diaz, they were way higher than Jon Jones has pulled together in any recent fights. With Anthony Smith, the pay-per-view numbers dropped again to 600,000, I believe, which is still a lot, don't get me wrong, still a lot. And then against Thiago Santos, the energy was less, the hype was less, those numbers dropped again. And then against Dominic Reyes, they didn't release the numbers, which means they drastically dropped because that card wasn't the best either, at least on those other cards, 235 and 239. The reason why they did so well in pay-per-view buys, they had Masvidal on the card, they always had a great co-main event. 239 and 235 were great cards. One had Usman versus Woodley on there, one had Nunes on there versus Holly Holm, I believe. Masvidal might have been on both cards, I'm not too sure. I actually am not too sure, really. I think Masvidal was on one of the cards against Askren, but either way, they were great cards, and that's why the pay-per-view did so well. Jon Jones, you never wanted to fight Ngannou. You were just leading us round on this mystery roller coaster ride, all the way back round to, fuck you, I'm fighting Jan Blachowicz, and I don't care about big money fights. I'm going to fight Jan Blachowicz. I don't know what Jon Jones was expecting. Was he expecting to go into the interview, talk to Dana White, and say, right, I want $1 million to show? Well, Jon Jones, here's how it works. You fight Francis Ngannou, we sell more pay-per-views. You get a share of those extra pay-per-views. That's where your pay increase comes from. And Jon Jones even admitted this. On Twitter, he said they mentioned something about possibly getting more money from the pay-per-view buys. But I wasn't interested in that. I wanted my show money. No. You're on contract. You don't renegotiate your show money. I don't know why this is... And it leads me to believe Jon Jones knows this. He gets money from the pay-per-view shares. There's only so much you can earn to show if you're not a big draw yourself. You become that big draw, and you get that big show money by beating a guy like Francis Ngannou, by taking these fights at heavyweight. Then you can start earning the heavyweight paychecks. Okay? I have no idea where Jones is coming from here. He must know. He knew the whole time he wasn't going to get this fight by asking for more show money. The money he would have gotten. I don't know how many more times I have to say this. For the hype of the Ngannou fight. He's saying the hype of the Ngannou fight should give me more show money. No, the hype of the Ngannou fight gives you more pay-per-views, which in turn gives you more money. That's where your bonus comes from. He knows this. He never wanted a piece of Francis Ngannou because Francis Ngannou would KO him stiff in the first round, and Jon Jones is off the juice. And I'll say that in this video as well. No one says it in the MMA media. It's fucking... thrown under the carpet, no one wants to talk about it. Brushed under the carpet is another way of saying that, the correct way of saying that. Or brushed under the cage, if we know anything about Jon Jones. He loves his time under the cage, hiding from USADA people coming to test him, because he's on cycle. Jon Jones was on steroids, he's now off steroids. He's looked very, very human since he's been off steroids. He's not going to fight Francis Ngannou. Ngannou would KO him stiff in the first round. But good job, Jon Jones. You've made your way out of that one. And now there's a little bit more hype for you versus Jan Blachowicz, which I assume is the next fight the UFC is going to make, where Jon Jones will make the same show money, but sell way less pay-per-views, in turn receiving less money. I have no idea. I don't understand. That champions renegotiating their show money is the weirdest thing to you. You're a champion, which means you guarantee yourself 500,000. Your bonus is the pay-per-view shares that you get for having a belt. Tony Ferguson versus Justin Gaethje at 249 just did way more pay-per-view buys than Jon Jones has ever done. In the ESPN Plus era, anyway. I don't know about before. There's obviously Jones, Cormier, stuff like that did good numbers. But in the ESPN Plus era, Gaethje versus Ferguson just blew any of Jon Jones's numbers out of the water. Jesus Christ, I don't know how that messed up so badly. And I'm assuming... is what I wanted to say, that Jones versus Dominic Reyes did shit pay-per-view numbers. Because that card was dog shit. UFC 247, if you look at it as a card, I know it was good in hindsight because there were some good fights on the card. The judging was pretty bad as well, but there were some decent fights on the card. But if Beneil Dariush is on your main card, and Trevin Giles is on your prelim headliner, coming off 2 losses in a row against James Krause, who stepped up on a day's notice... you're not going to sell pay-per-views there. It was a terrible card. It probably did shit numbers. Why would the UFC renegotiate your show money? You get your renegotiated show money by fighting Ngannou, breaking pay-per-view records, doing huge numbers, and then renegotiating. He never wanted to fight Ngannou. It's very simple. And now Ngannou's left out on his own. I don't know what Ngannou's going to do. I would say you should fight Derek Lewis. Easy win. He'd KO Derek Lewis in the first round. He doesn't have to wait around for Stipe versus DC. A lot of people say Derek Lewis is dangerous to Ngannou. Derek Lewis beat him the first fight. The first fight wasn't even a fight. It's out of my fucking memory already. I think Ngannou should fight Derek Lewis in the meantime. I know I said Overeem should take on Derek Lewis, but I was assuming that maybe Ngannou would have some other plan to go on. But now Ngannou's just going to have to sit around and wait for Stipe versus DC to happen. Who knows if the winner of that is even going to stick around anyway. Stipe might retire. DC might might retire, and rightfully so they can. They're old guys now. They're on their way out of the sport. I doubt they want to take on Ngannou just to defend their belt one more time. I mean, if Stipe defends, he's already the greatest heavyweight of all time. He'd just reinstate that, and plus he has a win over Ngannou already. So he might just retire after this. Who knows? So Ngannou, if you want to stay active, fight Derek Lewis, remove that one asterisk off of your record, because it's a terrible fight to have on your career. And I actually think the Ngannou versus Lewis fight garners more interest than the Rosenstruik one. A lot of people say you can't sell that rematch. And when I first said that Ngannou should fight Derek Lewis, I'm going to burp. When I first said that Ngannou was going to fight Derek Lewis, people came at me, they said no one's ever going to buy that, no one would watch that shit. People would watch Ngannou versus Derek Lewis now. I think the fact that the first fight was such an embarrassment could actually aid in this next fight, because you know that Derek Lewis and Francis Ngannou are both trying to right the wrong of the initial fight, and it's going to be fireworks. I think if you make Ngannou versus Lewis 2, it'd be fireworks. Both guys have something to prove after their first fight was so bad. I think you could market that as the headliner of a fight night, or as the feature fight of the DC versus Stipe Miocic card. I think that would be a great fight to have on the card. Maybe the co-main event, even if there isn't 2 championship bouts, which there probably will be. They tend to do that with the heavyweight bouts. Either way, Ngannou should fight Derek Lewis. Jones is fighting Jan Blachowicz, and I was right the whole time. Jones is going to lead us round to one big fuck you. I'm fighting Jan Blachowicz. Never had any intention of fighting Ngannou whatsoever. Otherwise, he would have taken it. And someone on Twitter even asked him, one of his fans, isn't legacy more important than money? And Jones gave some answer that didn't answer the question whatsoever. Yes, but at the same time, I have to understand my worth, and this is a business. Well, no, it's not about legacy. You weren't going to expose Ngannou and make it look easy like you were suggesting to us. Otherwise, you would just take the fight, look really cool in front of everyone because you're better than Ngannou, get all the pay-per-view revenue from the card, and be really rich. But no, you didn't want the fight. You wanted to renegotiate your show money, which makes no sense because that's set in contract that you're on, that you signed. Chael Sonnen always talks about this. Guys trying to renegotiate their contracts as champions makes 0 sense. They've signed a 4-fight deal or 5-fight deal for $500,000 to show. That's their money for having a belt. Then they get the pay-per-view buys on top of it. That's their benefit from having the belt. The $500,000 doesn't change. Even McGregor, his show money is different because obviously it's McGregor, but other guys, you look at how big some of these champions are, there seems to be a cap off at $500,000 to show. It's always been that way, and it goes down as the weight divisions drop, like it's $350,000 for some bantamweights, stuff like that. Then it gets to the $100,000 to show, $100,000 to win for the flyweights because no one cares about them. Jones found his way out of the fight, was this whole video's idea. I just basically did a Jon Jones on you. I led you on a massive roller coaster of nonsense, all the way back round to Jon Jones is scared of being KO'd by Ngannou. He never wanted the fight. He's off cycle. He's going to try and take on Jan Blachowicz. I hope Jan Blachowicz KOs him and we can actually have a light heavyweight champion that wants to jump up a division and be the GOAT and be the brave person who does. And by the way, before we stop the video, I'm not saying Jon Jones is a pussy. Jon Jones is braver than me and 99.999999999% of the world. But among the fighters, Jon Jones is a pussy. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button there. Goodbye.